The first thing I did to start this project was sand down the table. There were a few rough spots where I had gotten hot glue on it and some resin, so I decided to sand it down. I don't think it would have really mattered because after I added the glitter to it, it was kind of rough anyway. After that, I just used some alcohol to get all of the dust from sanding it off, so I would actually start with a very clean base. After that, I added a coat of paint that will sort of match the glitter that I was using. I wanted to do that just in case that there were places that the glitter didn't cover, and I'm really glad that I did, because after I finished the table I kind of wished that I had added one more coat of glitter, because there were a couple of kind of bare spots, not like terribly bald, but they were a little bit bare. Even though you couldn't really notice them, I could tell they were there. I got two shades of glitter. I couldn't really decide which one I wanted to do. I got a blue and a silver holographic, so I just took them both, dumped the whole canister into this cup, and then started trying to mix them together. The next thing I did was add a base coat of Mod Podge. I have seen this part done a couple of different ways. I actually have seen people just mix the glitter into the resin epoxy and then pour all of that onto the top. I chose not to do it that way because I have done a couple of smaller projects by just mixing it into the epoxy and pouring it on, and I don't like how much glitter that you end up losing when you do it that way, because it will drip over the sides, and when it drips over the sides you do lose quite a bit of glitter. I wanted to make sure that most of the glitter that I applied stayed on. After making sure that my Mod Podge was as even as possible, I began to add the glitter that I mixed together. This was a little tricky because I work in a very limited area, and I did end up with quite a bit in my carpet, even though I did put down this newspaper to try to catch some of it. But my vacuum is good, so I got a lot of it out. And I just kind of turned it around to each side to make sure I got the whole thing covered as well as possible. Next, I began to add the epoxy, and again I'm working in a very confined space because I had to go somewhere that I could block off fairly easy so that my dog wouldn't mess with it. And always when you begin the first coat of epoxy over glitter, whether it's a cup or a table or what you're doing, always mix up more than you think you'll need. I've learned that from making cups, because the way that the nooks and crannies and crevices of the glitter, it absorbs a ton of epoxy. So just be sure that you mix up way more than you think you'll need, because whether you're mixing the glitter into the epoxy or just coating it over like this, you will use a lot more than you think you're going to. And also be sure that you cover whatever surface that you are sitting your project on. I've put a garbage bag under this because the epoxy will drip off. Now you can put masking tape around and only put epoxy on the top of your project instead of it dripping over the sides, but I wanted the sides to be glittered as well, so I wanted the epoxy to run down over it. So if you're just doing the top, then you probably wouldn't need it quite as much. I would still probably cover it just in case, because really the only way you would be able to get the epoxy off after that would be to sand it. I wanted to add a little bit more sparkle to the top, and I am a big fan of moons and stars, so I had some star glitter, so here I'm just sprinkling the stars on top of my coat of epoxy. I waited 24 hours and then I added another coat of epoxy to the top. I just spread it on. I used the spatula a little bit, but really to me it's a lot easier to just spread it out using your finger. Be sure that you are using a gloved hand because some people do have reactions to the epoxy, and plus it is very hard to get off. If you do happen to get some on your skin, use alcohol before you wash them because alcohol gets it off easier than soap and water will. I did try to run my finger underneath the edge of the table some just to try to keep the drips underneath at bay. I also came back after it set for about 2 hours and ran my finger just along the edge to try to get rid of some of the drips. It got rid of some of them, it didn't get rid of all of them. In the end, I did have to go back and sand some of the drips off. If you're working with a wood surface, for sure, it's just as easy to go back and sand them once it's hardened. And here is the finished product. I do wish that I had added one more layer of glitter, but the sparkle I think was nice. I also wish that I had sanded it down and added one more coat of epoxy just because there were a couple of little rough pieces where the glitter did poke through, but all in all, I was proud of how it turned out.